Sorry about that. I just really like that line from Digging Up the Marrow. Real quick, viewer, let's just play a game. You and me, let's play a game of guess the movie by the reviews. I'm gonna give you 2 reviews. You just gotta guess the movie. That's all. Usually, I'm against franchise movies. It's like throwing a ball down a fleet of stairs. It just drops in quality and ends up chasing money rather than a worthy sequel. Blank is one of those rare exceptions. It's just amazing with the ideas they come up with, brilliant concepts, neatly executed. I would say it's a worthy end to this disturbing franchise. Alright, don't take too long thinking about that one. Take it in, soak it in a little bit, and now here's the second one. God, this is a crap movie. Found footage horror movies are my absolute favorite, and as evident by the intro game we just played, this genre is very polarizing. But I'm gonna be talking about what makes this my absolute favorite genre, as well as the kind of things that really take away from the experience when you're watching one of these. But just to get them out of the way, because there's a lot more people who can break down these movies a lot better than I can. Of course, the OG, the grandpa, if you will, of found footage horror, Cannibal Holocaust. And if you've never heard of this movie, yeah, it's exactly as crazy as it sounds. Extremely disturbing, truly horrific, and that's kind of what the first thing I want to talk about is. The visceral nature of found footage horror movies. The realism that is pretty much incomparable versus every other filming technique. Found footage is horror that actually scares you. I mean, here is where jump scares I find work the very best. You see, in the cinematic experience where you're waiting for the character to turn the corner and then, oh, boom, right there's a jump scare. It just doesn't work the same way as when your character is experiencing that scare with you. It feels intimate. It makes that experience that much more real. And that's what these types of movies are all about. They're taking advantage of your perspective in a way that only found footage can, because you're literally watching pretty much through the eyes of your character. The shaky camera, the frantic nature of the editing especially, I cannot get enough of it. And there's another added benefit that I think started with one very special movie to the found footage history, that being the Blair Witch Project. And shout out to Empleman, one of my absolute favorite YouTubers. He did a video on this movie that explains its significance in a way that I couldn't possibly do, so go ahead and check that video out if you want to know more about the history and just the importance of the Blair Witch Project. But where Cannibal Holocaust captured something that was basically realistic and just terrifying, the Blair Witch Project did something else. It highlighted the supernatural, something that went on to inspire decades and decades of found footage on YouTube. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the success of the Backroom series. What Kane Parsons was able to do here with his storyline, cinematography, and special effects literally had a chokehold on YouTube for years. The unsettling nature of this and nostalgic feeling you get while watching these was really why it got put on the map and just took off so fast. All of that, I'd argue, started with the Blair Witch Project. And supernatural elements basically became the backbone of found footage horror since the Blair Witch Project. I mean, nearly all pieces of found footage horror at this point contain some element of the supernatural, and that's the element that takes these movies to an entirely different experience, from the usage of CGI and practical effects to just storytelling in general. Seeing the reaction of a character when they're seeing something that is supernatural, it adds to the mystique that what you're watching is found footage. This is not something that is meant to have been seen. This was footage that was meant to be locked away. It's absolutely perfect because of that. And don't even get me started with chase scenes. I mean, anything with like loud footsteps coming at you, it hits every single time. I don't know what it is. These will always be the scariest thing in horror movies. Give me a good chase scene and I'm entertained the entire way through. I'm telling you. I mean, sure, the cinematography and the jump scares are extremely important to this genre. Found footage at its core comes down to one very important element, that being the actors. They have to sell the realism of it all. And what sells it even more is that usually the actors in these films, I wouldn't say are no names, but they aren't people that you're gonna see immediately and be like, oh, I know exactly who that is. And so taking advantage of what a viewer knows and the faces that they've seen before, it just adds so much more to the experience. And it really does make these performances that much more impressive, which goes without saying, but it's necessary to transition to the next point. The budget of these movies usually isn't very high. You definitely have your outliers like Cloverfield with a budget of $25 million, but even that isn't all that crazy, because then you look on the other side of the coin and then you see Blair Witch Project has a budget of $60,000. But then you can go even lower than that and look at something like Creep, which I don't really know if this is substantiated or not, but the budget didn't pass $5,000. Like, bro, what? You telling me I could just go outside and go make that right now? Of course, I can't possibly do that. But these films are made in a very small and just tight-knit execution. It just makes me like them that much more. But keeping all these points in mind, I just want to reiterate, you are kind of rolling the dice when it comes to these movies, because I'm not gonna lie to you, they can get a little bit repetitive, even though they do a solid job of at least twisting up the narrative sometimes to make it a different story. They kind of just repeat the same opening and ending. It's kind of annoying. The following tapes were found August 30th, 2000. Like, no, bro, no, it wasn't. These tapes were not found at the, like, I get it. They're trying to give you the realistic experience, and then it ends with like some static, and then the credits play. Ugh. And look, I'm a sucker for practical effects, like most people are, but that doesn't mean practical effects are good all the time, and we all know how bad CGI can get, especially when your budget isn't all that high. There's a threshold with CGI, and you're already working against some budget constraints with found footage, and so when you include copious amounts of CGI, it's just like, all right, that clearly wasn't real. But again, these movies are not easy to make. But I will say about the writing, the unscripted nature of it all, it can benefit. It definitely can. Some of these conversations that the characters have are legitimately just unscripted back and forth conversations between actual people, which is pretty cool. But then when you get writers involved and you're trying to write in certain lines, some things just get really clunky, and it's like they wouldn't say that. And one could argue that's the cheesy nature of horror movies that we all love. They've always been like that, and they'll continue to be like that. But usually the writing of found footage horror movies is nothing to write home about. And yes, while a good jump scare or chase scene can really enhance the experience, what about when the jump scare just is bad and it's just a big CGI face? It could just take you right out of the moment, take you right out of the movie, and then you're just sitting there wondering, what the hell am I watching? But to a lot of these movies' benefits, and just to talk about the positives again for a second, they're usually very short and sweet. Even if you're watching one that's pretty bad, at least it isn't soaking up 2 hours of your time. On average, a lot of these movies are like an hour, 20 minutes, right? They're quick and they're out of there as soon as they got there, so it's a give and take, I guess. And for this next part of the video, I'm going to be talking about some of the ones that I absolutely hate, some of the ones that I really, really like, and others that are kind of a mixed bag for me. But just a reminder, guys, these are just my takes. It's completely okay to disagree. This channel is made for discussions and stuff like that, and plus having the same opinion as everyone else is boring anyway, so make sure to form your own opinion, and if you disagree, again, it's completely okay. Up first, I'm going to be talking about the found footage movies that I hate. By the way, it was VHS Viral, and I'll be talking about that one first. Now, just a mini overview on the VHS series. These are by far the best examples of found footage horror that you can possibly get. There's been enough people to sing the praises of the VHS series over the years, and yes, I have yet to watch VHS Beyond. I'll be doing that real soon. But VHS, in my opinion, has something for everybody. Not in the case of VHS Viral, though. Like, bro, like, genitalia monsters? Are we saying? And you know what's crazy is, like, honestly, any of the VHS Viral tapes are down there in the worst, like, ever. Like, if we're doing a ranking, all of VHS are, just put it at the very bottom. We'll be talking more about the VHS series as this video goes on, but next up, Grave Encounters. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I was never one for the Ghost Adventures type shows growing up. Shout out Zach Bagans though, that's my guy. I just can't get behind Grave Encounters 2 specifically. Now, Grave Encounters 1, I'd put that in the mixed bag. 2 just pulls it all the way down. Look, the entire cast, unlikable. They aren't the cast from Grave Encounters 1, at least they were making you laugh. Next up, I want to mention another type of found footage style. The Poughkeepsie tapes, Lake Mungo and Megan is missing. Maybe it's something about the documentary style and interrupting the interviews of the certain characters with clips, and that's where the found footage aspect comes into play, because they're showing you the tapes of basically whoever was missing at the time, right? I think all of these kind of just revolve around a missing person or something like that. I think one of the things that you really buy into found footage horror for is the franticness of it, the fast pace, and you just don't get that really with these 3 movies right here. I would say there's 3 very important franchises when it comes to the start of found footage. You got Cannibal Holocaust, you have the Blair Witch Project, and you have the Paranormal Activity series. These 3 are like the 3-headed dragon of like the OG pillars of found footage. But next of kin is an absolute disgrace. There's a Zack Snyder like slow down kill of like what the hell was that? What was that? This movie alone put that entire series to bed, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't even connected with the other Paranormal Activity movies. Just get it out of here. And finally, The Gallows. And let me just ask you, viewer, do you remember the Charlie Challenge? The Charlie Challenge was a kind of Ouija board type summoning game that went viral months, like mere months before this movie dropped. And what they did in the viral marketing campaign was that they were like, oh, by coincidence, our main killer's name is Charlie. Why don't we use this viral viral little challenge that everybody's doing and use that to market our movie. No. It just seemed like they didn't know what this movie was going to be. I mean, in one of the TV spots, they described Jason as having his machete, Freddy as having his gloves, Charlie having his noose. No. No. And finally, because I had almost forgot to add this in because of how much I hate it, The Outwaters. There's very few movies I've ever watched that just genuinely anger me to the point where I don't want to watch it, or maybe I just watch the rest of it because I hate it so much. Maybe I just hate watch it. The Outwaters angered me to the point I didn't even think I could be this upset with a movie. I don't know what it is. Maybe just how confusing it was, the last part of the movie, and how nonsensical and off the rails it went. Look, sometimes going off the rails is a good thing. Sometimes it works. In the Outwaters case, it absolutely didn't. It destroyed the entire movie. Even the beginning was bad. It was just slow, boring as hell, and good thing I've seen other people who feel the same way. But on to the found footage movies that I like, and some would consider this a classic. Cloverfield. Now, Cloverfield is a very special movie to me. This one gets an annual rewatch. I'm telling you guys, it's one of those that you sit and watch and go, you know, if this happened right this second, right now, what the hell are we gonna do to escape this situation? And I don't know whether to say it's a shame that the other Cloverfield movies didn't follow in the same format, because honestly, it just makes this one that much more special. It's the only one of its kind. It's one of the best monster movies to this day. It's just super entertaining, and I'm always just left in awe of how this movie was made. Seriously. I want to mention two very recent found footage horror movies, Deadstream and Dashcam. Now, Deadstream is just a fun time. I mean, this is one of the best examples of just your lead actor pretty much just carrying the movie on their back. The charisma, the writing, the reactions to the things that happen in the movie is just so good. Also, it's kind of like a little boost to YouTubers and kind of being a YouTuber. It's pretty cool. Honestly, go watch it. Dashcam also follows in a similar vein, this time having a female lead. She's basically a female version of the guy from Deadstream. Very similar, very charismatic. And the scares in this one, some of the best I've seen in a very long time. And when you talk about being frantic, that last like 20-25 minutes of this movie, insane. Love this movie so much. You also have movies like Project X and Chronicle, but I want to focus on Chronicle real quick right now because I love this movie. You have an excellent villain with a great motivation. It blends the superhero genre with found footage, and the teenage group and fooling around aspect is just so good. Chronicle is an absolute classic, not just in the found footage genre, but just in general. You'd be hard pressed to find somebody who doesn't remember and really like this movie. As Above, So Below is about the Paris catacombs, and one thing about these movies is just that tight feeling that you can't breathe, that claustrophobia. Found footage horror takes advantage of that to the extreme, and As Above, So Below is a perfect example of using claustrophobia as a tool to really enhance the horror and just the situation of it all, because the Paris catacombs are just such a unique location, and thankfully this movie was really good because there's no other movie like it. In due time, if you stick around this channel, y'all will hear more about my love of zombies, and while the threat in this movie isn't necessarily zombies, that's pretty much what they are. But Wreck, just an absolute classic here. Funny enough, I'm one of the people to have seen Quarantine before seeing Wreck, and so seeing how Quarantine basically copied the entire, like, can I copy your homework, just don't make it look too obvious. That's literally what Quarantine did. But yeah, I mean, you get one of the best zombie performances in Wreck, and that just makes it an absolute classic. I definitely need to watch some more zombie movies though. Maybe that'll be the next video. I don't know. And now on to the movies that I'm a bit more mixed on. I do want to mention another type of found footage horror in this section. That being what I saw somebody online define as desktop horror. And this, of course, being movies like The Den, Unfriended, Unfriended Dark Web, Host. But of all of these, I do think I like Unfriended Dark Webs the most. I think what it is about these movies is that they can get nonsensical pretty quick, especially with like spirits involved and basically using a computer screen to display and showcase a spirit. I always hated that trope in these movies, I'm not gonna lie to you. Even in Unfriended Dark Web, when you have like that virtual monster man, like, what the hell is that? Like, how is that happening? What? Like, come on, dude. I would like to point out though that Host is extremely unique in that it was made during basically COVID times, and so it was a Zoom horror movie, and it's intentionally the length of a free trial Zoom call. But I feel like when you've seen one of these movies, you've kind of seen all of them. But still, desktop horror is a unique little genre on its own, definitely worthy of seeing if you haven't already. Skinamarink got tons of traction from TikTok, if I remember correctly. It doesn't really fit the typical found footage horror. It's more of like security cam footage, and even at that, you're not seeing a lot of this movie. A lot of it is obscured by things. They do show things around the house, which is basically where the entire film takes place. It's a house with these two little kids. You're kind of just hearing them speak. That's the movie, pretty much. And some of Skinamarink does definitely get very scary and unsettling, but it's an experimental movie, one of a kind, I will say. But for those reasons, you could either like it or not like it. I think when I first watched it, I kind of fell into the didn't like category, but over time I kind of came to appreciate how different this movie was. Digging Up the Marrow, the intro clip that I used for this video, I like this movie a lot. I think upon rewatch, it doesn't really hold up as good as the first time seeing it. The more you watch it, you just realize it's kind of a flex of practical effects. That's a lot of what this movie is. A lot of the jump scares revolve around these monsters appearing, and that's kind of the movie after a while. So a lot to respect in this movie, a lot to like, but maybe it doesn't age as well as compared to the other movies on this list. And saving the very best for last, of course, VHS. But it's weird because VHS embodies everything that is incredible about found footage while also managing to embody everything that isn't so good. I think it'd even be fair to say that VHS, the series, is more of a focus on quantity over quality. But one thing you can never deny is the creativity that comes with this series. Of course, some segments are better than others, but that doesn't take away from the overall experience that is watching this anthology unfold. But how could I possibly end off this video before mentioning my favorite clips of VHS and some of my least favorite? When it comes to this movie franchise, I could literally be here all day, and maybe someday I'll go ahead and rank every single tape. But for now, I'm going to be highlighting one segment from each VHS movie because they all deserve that respect, and saying whether I liked it or did not. Starting off with VHS 1, Amateur Night. Of course, this is the one with the succubus Lily. I mean, come on now. This is the very first VHS clip. If this didn't work, this franchise just wouldn't be here today, I don't think. So this is the only VHS clip in the entirety of the series to get its own full-length movie. This one is iconic and basically set off the entire franchise. But just because it's iconic, just because it's the first, that doesn't mean it's the best. The best one is gonna be saved for last. VHS Viral, we already talked about, right? Parallel Monsters, just no, bro. I'm traumatized. VHS 94, All Hail King Ratma Storm Drain. Oh, that's so nasty. I just love the practical effects and the scream of Ratma. Damn. Ugh. Next up, VHS 99, I Love to Hell and Back. The character of Mabel having a little chant at the very end credit of this movie. This was the last one of the movie as well, and one of the longer shorts overall. I don't know what the average length is for a short in the VHS series, but I do remember this one being on the longer end. These two guys on some like Mordecai and Rigby energy, they get transported to hell and they got to get back to their world. They eventually do, but things happen. VHS 85 is the latest one that I watched. Again, I didn't watch Beyond, I'm sorry guys, but this one had the short dream kill, and I don't know what it is about this. I see the concept that they were going for. You got this guy's son who could basically see the future in his dreams, and the father is the killer in this short. Yeah, not a huge fan of this one. I respect the concept, I respect the idea, just didn't really like it too much. I thought the execution was a little And finally, Safe Haven VHS 2. It is the best by far. I think there's just a humongous gap between the #1 VHS tape and the #2. Safe Haven honestly just could be an entire movie in and of itself. The middle part, you got your zombies, you got your crazy things that happen, and just they set it up so perfectly, and the way everything comes back around, man, it's terrifying. The horns in the background, oh, that is nightmare fuel, bro. And of course, that last shot before it ends, iconic. I'm always looking forward to the next found footage movie because they're a very exciting roll of the dice to me. You just never know what you're gonna get with one of these movies, and I've been recommended a few, so I'm definitely gonna watch them when I have the time. Give me your opinion on some of these movies, man, and some of them that I didn't mention, because again, there's not too many of them out there, and there's still a lot that I haven't seen. Do you agree or disagree with my takes? Again, they're just my takes, right? You can have your own, and that's completely fine. And let me know what you guys think about this new Dr. Doom format for the editing. I really like how the video's coming along, so yeah, just love to hear you guys' thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed your stay. I've been Villains, and farewell.